I want to give a very quick rundown on the Batavia Village meeting that took place last night that was on the development of a community by the airport that has created a great deal of controversy. I think both because of the development and because of the density of the development. I am actually going to take the same position on it as took on Miller Place back in the day in Union Township. Is that I don't have a position. What I do have a position on is to refute lies, incomplete information, and falsehoods that are out there. So one of them being, I think last week I talked about Adam Byrd talking about how he was going to try to do something about this without noting that he had been voted for something called the Community Reinvestment Area bill that was also voted for by Gene Schmidt and was co-sponsored by Senator Terry Johnson. So it was disingenuous for Byrd to act like he didn't know anything about these kind of developments when he had been an affirmative vote for the community reinvestment areas. So last night there was a meeting in Batavia. I was not at the meeting. I was at a West Claremont School Board meeting. I saw a couple of news stories, and in both news stories, there was a young woman from the elementary school named Lela who spoke, and I want to, then her mom spoke to the reporter afterwards, and I want to basically just talk about three aspects of that, and I'm going to play some video to kind of go through the what happened. And let's go back. I'm going to stop this here, and this is if I get it to cooperate with me. This is Lela talking at the meeting. This is the part that was on the news. This young lady, and let's hear what she has to say.
I've been learning about government. I learned that as a representative democracy, your role is to represent the people.
So she said she had learned about representative democracy and their job was to represent the people. And then she talked about Batavia schools and so forth as well and got thunderous applause and a standing ovation. But I don't think Lela lives in Batavia Village. I'd be interested if she does, but I don't think she does. So, Lela, one of the important things your mom should teach you is that the council people in Batavia are there to represent the people of Batavia Village, not Batavia Township, where you probably live. So the other thing is, uh, obviously, in representative democracy in a republic, the elected officials are supposed to represent the people, but they're also supposed to adhere to the Constitution, to enforce the laws, and to respect people's property rights. One of the founding principles of our country is John Locke. It was modified a little by Thomas Jefferson, but life, liberty, and property. So developers have an inherent right to be able to develop property and to use it for reasons that are good for them. Because of zoning and so forth, there's community control over that. And there's a process that should play out, and it plays out here. But Lela, your mom should teach you that when it comes to things like this, it's not just the mob, whatever the biggest mob is that shows up that gets to determine. Like maybe a mob would show up in my neighborhood and decide my house should get burned down. That doesn't make it okay. So I hope that in Batavia schools, young minds like this, you'll teach them some about that. What a republic means is that you elect people not to just represent the mob and whoever cheers the most, but to represent the best interests of the community, to adhere to the laws in the Constitution, and to respect the rights of property owners. That property, what gets in the United States, we don't sometimes appreciate that of all the things we talk about in life and liberty and so forth, and our First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, property rights is a key element of the success of the United States, that people have inherent property rights. Now, let's go back and let's listen to the next part, which I think is in front of the building.
Lela's mom further worried planned tax abatements for the new residents would add students to the school without adding any additional tax base.
Okay, so the reporter says adding students to the school without adding any additional tax base. That's just wrong. Okay, so I believe about 60% of all school funding comes from the state. So when you have incremental students, you get that money from the state. And a community reinvestment area, the increased property value is taxed immediately, and part of that would go to the schools. The part that is not taxed immediately, the incentive, is on the house itself, for example, not the increased value of the actual underlying property, but the value of the house itself. That's on, I believe, a 15-year thing. This was a plan to try to get development to happen in Ohio in some of these places where if where they're challenged to get the right kind of housing, if they get the right kind of people involved. So that's the second part of this is that it is, and I'm going to keep this playing because we're in the middle of it, that the reporter's wrong in terms of school funding and how school funding works. But what a shock that a reporter's wrong about something. Let's keep going.
Making it not a safe environment for our kids.
Now, I wanted to catch that little part at the end there where the mom says somehow by adding people from this community, it doesn't make it a safe environment for our kids. I don't know what's motivating that. Are you worried about some race or group of people going to come in or income demographic? But I fail to see how middle class or upper middle class or whatever these are, I don't even know what the value of these homes are, makes it inherently unsafe for your kid at Batavia schools. And that kind of rhetoric I think that is the kind of thing that we as conservatives, I think liberals could say is the dog whistling type stuff. Bad people are going to come in here. Bad people are inherently going to make it unsafe. And that's what the mom said there. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to flip it back to here. And I'm going to keep playing this, and then the little girl talks about, Lela talks about the schools, and then I'm going to show you a chart.
I love so it's so small, and I like that feeling and knowing almost everybody in my grade, and I like that my principals know almost everybody in the whole school.
Okay, so she likes that her principals, everybody, small school, everybody knows everybody in the school. The funny part about it is I happened to be at the West Claremont School Board meeting when this meeting was taking place, and they put up the new ratings for the schools. And you see West Claremont has 4 stars. It's the top line there with the overall rating. And Batavia is actually one of the 3 bottom districts, at least on this chart. And I think is this all of them in Claremont County. It looks like a pretty comprehensive list, but I'm not sure that every school district is there. I think it is. But if you look, Batavia has 3 stars. Claremont Northeastern has 3 stars, and Felicity Franklin has 3 stars. So I appreciate that it's fantastic that it's a smaller school, but there could be small schools in big districts also. But the performance of the schools in Batavia are not at the level of, let me put this back up here. They're not at the level of some of the other districts here. And so as we talk about the schools and Batavia schools, I'm not sure that a housing development is what's going to cave in Batavia schools if they're already performing poorly relative to other schools. They should address why are they performing poorly today and try to improve that performance. Okay, so whether this housing thing is a good idea or a bad idea, whether the density is a good idea or a bad idea, those are I'm not really taking a position on that, but I did want to take a position on really 4 things. I'm going to say the 4th one last. One is that we need to make sure that kids are educated, that government's not a representative democracy doesn't mean whoever yells the loudest in a meeting. Representative democracy means that people's rights are protected under the law, under the Constitution, that property rights are important, and that there are the right mechanisms and checks and balances in place. Just because, there's a mob yelling doesn't mean that that's what elected leaders should do. In fact, when mobs yelling cause elected leaders to do stuff, typically in government, bad stuff happens, not good stuff. The second thing is the misrepresentation by the reporter as to the taxes. There would be a 15-year abatement from what I'm understanding. I don't think abatement's the right word, a 15-year incentive. But schools are not funded purely on property tax. And this is not like a TIF. Part of the increase in value is taxed immediately. And it'd be nice if some reporter would actually say that specifically. And then Batavia schools, I get it. You want to have good schools. Everybody wants to have good schools, but it doesn't inherently mean you have bad schools or they're unsafe because new people move into your community. That is, I'm sorry if you live in Batavia Township, but it's going to develop. And I wonder how this land got annexed by the village, and maybe people should go back and say in Batavia Township that if you resist development potentially to a certain degree, it's going to cause places to potentially leave and let themselves get annexed so that they can get a better deal to do what they want to do. I think the same thing happened with Stone Lake Township um, as well. So, and then the fourth thing that I wanted to bring up is this. I'm sure somebody's going to bitch at me like, "Oh, you put a little kid on you attack kids," and I don't. I remember when I get accused of attacking kids for attacking James Kidwell's 36-year-old son in federal prison as somehow I'm attacking his kid. That's an adult man in prison for being a pedophile. That's not a kid. And we should all know about that, and it shouldn't be hidden. But in this particular case, where it is a young kid, I don't think I've attacked anybody, but I want to point out if you're a mom and you're going to put your kid up on stage to be a speaker at political things and on governmental things, that's good. And that's to be complimented. I compliment you for doing that. And when you do that, then also it's okay for people to criticize what they said or make comments about what they said or about what you said in terms of maybe the understanding of government or this implication that somehow just having new people in the school makes it unsafe. So that's my rundown from the meeting last night.